Hi, and welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today, we are bringing you the one and only Lorraine Thornhill. Lorraine has been a guest of ours over the years. She's a hypnotist and always has such wonderfully interesting things to share with us on Freshwaves. Lorraine, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's been a while since we've spoken with you, and I understand that you have undertaken a new endeavor.
I have. I'm specializing more. I'm refining what I do. I've done hypnosis over the years for the past 15 years, and I've done more generalized things, but I've started to be more specific in my intentions, also with my intentions of hypnosis. In particular, working with people who suffer from inflammatory bowel disease, such as Crohn's and colitis and irritable bowel syndrome.
Wow. Now, for those people who are just tuning in and have never heard you speak about hypnosis, can you tell us a little bit about hypnosis? Because I think hypnosis is one of those things where people tend to get that cliched idea of someone sitting in front of you, dangling a pendant and saying, "You are getting sleepy." But that's not really what it's all about, is it?
If I could put a coin in my pocket every time somebody mentions that way of being hypnotized to me. No, that is not the way. Although it has been done in the past, there's no discounting that. But basically, what hypnosis is a relaxed state of heightened awareness. You are not asleep when you're hypnotized. You are in an alpha state, which is generally the state between being wide awake and sleeping. If I could give you a level that you could picture in your mind, it's that very relaxed state where your muscles are very responsive, your mind is very responsive, and there's no real inhibitions or hesitations about thoughts getting in the way or subjective information. Basically, your egos are left at the curb, and what you're working with is the true value of a non-subjective mind, or a very objective, a very open mind. And so it's easy for everybody to go into that state, because I'll give you an example of how easy it is to go into this state. Whether you believe you can be hypnotized or not, that is really, it doesn't really matter, because everybody at some point is hypnotized, and they take themselves into a trance. Now, an example of this is if you're driving from one point to the next. If you've done that drive so many times, then your unconscious mind will take over and get you to the place that you want to be. And then in between that point from A to B, you forget about what you've passed, or you're on automatic mode. And so your mind just relaxes into that state quite easily.
That is actually a really good analogy, because that's happened to me so many times and to everybody I know. All of a sudden you arrive home and you think, wow, that was fast. How'd that happen?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to think about the steps. You just go in there and do it. And that's on an unconscious type of level, as opposed to a conscious type of level, discerning every single move that you do. Right?
So actually that trance-like state when you're driving is probably not the best to be in.
Well, the truth about that is, if something jars you out of that trance-like state, or the alpha state, your body will respond very quickly. So, for example, if you are in that, for lack of a better word, if you're in that trance state driving from A to B, and a deer runs across in front of it, all of a sudden you'll jump out of it and you'll be reactionary. So it is your unconscious mind taking care of you. Say, okay, now you have to do this. Instead of being in this lull or this soft state, you have to sharpen yourself up and be reactive to what's in front of you. So your body will take care of you. Your mind will take care of you, even if you're in that lull or trance state while you're driving.
Okay, well then is it a myth that a hypnotist can make you do and say things that you normally would not say or do?
Generally, it is a myth, but let me clarify that, because a stage hypnotist, for example, gets people up on stage to do very, very funny things. But the act of going up on the stage itself gives the hypnotist permission to do those things, because you agree to their terms just by walking up on the stage. That being said, if it goes against your morals or values, you will absolutely not do those things. And if you will not, when you're being hypnotized, unless it's specific to not remember what you did during hypnosis, you will actually remember everything that you did. Even the people up on stage, when they're doing these silly bird dances and screaming eagle plays, or playing around with the hypnotist, those actual events are remembered by the people who went up on stage. So it's not as if they're unaware of what's going on. It's just that their conscious mind or their ego state is just out of the way so that they can play a little bit with their unconscious mind. And it's a misnomer that I could tell you basically to rob a bank, because if it's not in your values or morals, you would not do that, regardless of what I said.
Okay. Well, haven't there been cases where people have gone into a hypnotic state in order to remember a past event or something that may have been rather unpleasant, and then wouldn't your subconscious not really want you to go back there?
Actually, that's a really good point. I take people back through regression hypnosis or past life hypnosis. And for the specific purpose of changing how that event affects you in the current day. Or sometimes people go back to past lives or previous experiences in their life to remember what's going on so that they can relieve or release that negative emotion that's associated with it. An example of this would be if you do something unconsciously and you don't know why you're doing it, and you have this fear of an event that happened in the past, to do timeline work or regression work, a hypnotist would take that person back to prior to the event that happened to that person that has created that imprint moving forward. So if you take the person back to prior to that imprint being created, then you can change. You're not going to change the event, but you can change how you respond to that event. So you can change the color of the event, the size of the event, the emotional aspect of the event, by being an observer as opposed to being actually implicit or be a part of that event. So it's really incredible how you can rearrange the thoughts in a mind to create a successful outcome for that person that wishes to get rid of a behavior that they don't realize the origin source of that behavior. And this is a prime example of fears and phobias. An imprint could be somebody is scared of cats, and then maybe they pass that imprint on to their children, and the children have no idea why they're scared of cats. So when you take that child back to the point where a parent or someone in their life created that fear, and you take them back prior to that fear, they can see the bigger picture as an observer, and realize that that fear is just an association of somebody else's behavior. It's not anything that happened to them. Now, in terms where things have happened to other people and it is manifested in different ways throughout the rest of their life, you can also take that person back to prior to the event and change how that person views that event. Again, you can't forget that event, but you can change how it manifests in the current circumstance. And so different habits can change. For example, smoking. You can change a person from smoking. If they're a chain smoker, take them back to prior to them smoking, and then change the feeling of the first cigarette so that they never want to smoke again, or prevent them from even taking or remembering the first puff of a cigarette. And generally that works really well for quitting smoking.
Is there some truth to the fact that you actually have to want to quit smoking in order for that kind of hypnosis to work?
Absolutely. And if you don't want to quit smoking, there's no point going to see a hypnotist.
Okay. Now, what about something like a fear? I have a paralyzing fear of heights, and it prevented me from actually going on a couple of hikes when I was out west earlier this year. Or I was almost to the top, but I had to walk on a path that would have led me very close to a 1,000-foot drop. And I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't breathe. I was frozen to the spot. I had to turn away from the cliff. I was terrified. Could hypnosis perhaps help a situation like that? I don't know where it started. I don't know whether it was an event. I don't know whether it was someone imprinting their fear on me. As far as I know, no one else in my family has this fear but me.
Well, that's a really, really good point you brought up. The unconscious mind always knows when that event started.
Ah, okay.
But the conscious mind doesn't have a clue. Most times, and I'll say that generally, most times the conscious mind does not have a clue, because the conscious mind can't remember everything, but the unconscious mind is like the Book of Kells, you know, in the college in Dublin, Ireland, where there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of ancient books, and it goes back centuries and centuries in there. So that's like, if I could describe an unconscious mind, that's what it's like. It's got a storage capacity for billions and billions of pieces of information that we, as conscious beings, cannot remember up front.
Huh. That's fascinating. Well, I might have to make a trip down to your house and try and figure out my fear of heights.
It's always a good opportunity.
Yeah. Well, this show actually is going to focus more on your new endeavors, which are focusing on IBS and IBD. And you just explained what those two categories are. It seems to me like a lot of people I know these days have been diagnosed or think they have IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. And you know, that's everything from persistent stomach aches to debilitating stomach aches to, well, regularly I just don't feel well and my stomach's not great. We used to call that a nervous stomach.
Right. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but if just in the United States alone and in Canada, well, in the United States, there's about 45 million people diagnosed with IBS, and that's the known and basically the unknown diagnostics. Wow. In Canada, I think the number is close to 1.8 million.
Wow.
Now there's a huge population differentiation between Canada and the US, but IBD alone in Canada is close, I believe, somewhere around the 700,000, and that includes Crohn's and colitis. And then in the States, the numbers are like somewhere around 5 to 8 million, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's enormous, and it's growing exponentially each year.
How did you get involved in this?
Well, when I was younger, I had severe ulcerative colitis. They classified it as acute ulcerative colitis. And one weekend actually, I thought I had the flu, and I could not stop shivering. I was vomiting and had, without getting too messy here, diarrhea and blood in my stool and all this kind of stuff. And I could not keep any food down, any liquids down, and I couldn't stop. No matter how warm I tried to get myself, I was cold as ice. So I drove myself into the emergency room thinking that I had the flu. And this was at the Health Sciences Center in St. John's, Newfoundland. And I ended up, that was the first night of the next 7 months I spent in hospital.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and it was touch and go for a while. My body dropped from 120 pounds to under 80 pounds in mere months. My heart started palpitating. I became toxic to the drugs that they were giving me to try and fight this. It was a raging internal infection that was going on that they couldn't stop. And I had this mindset while I was in the hospital that, is this all there is? You know, am I ever going to get better? Am I always going to feel like this? And then after about, I don't know, maybe five months in the hospital, I met this other patient in there. She was a young girl. She was about 17, 18 years old. And she and I became very, very good friends. And she was diagnosed with leukemia. And we had these very philosophical talks, these very spiritual talks, and which, you know, I love my angels, I have to say. And these talks were very, very, a combination between like the ethereal, bringing in all sorts of values and the meaning of life, basically. And for 17-year-olds to discuss the meaning of life is really a heavy, a deep subject for a 17-year-old. And so one day we were sitting in the butterfly garden, both of us hooked up to these IV poles, and neither one of us had much energy. And she brought out this picture and showed it to me, and it was a picture of a little baby boy. And he had, I could describe the picture right to the last pixel. Blue and white striped, knitted pantsuit, sweater and pants, and black hair and big brown eyes. And he was only about 7 or 8 months old. And she said to me this one moment in time, she said, Lorraine, if I don't do anything else, and I only gave birth to this little boy because it was her son, she introduced him to me as her son, and she said, if I do nothing else but give birth to this little boy, then my life is complete. And I went, whoa, holy moly, that is such a statement. And it was her perspective on her life that changed who I was in that moment. And that is when my healing started, because my perspective on my life changed completely. And so it was at that point, I'll be forever grateful to her for being so important in my healing process. So what she basically said is, get out of your own way and stop relying on everybody else to do the healing for you. And we had hours and hours of conversation on this. And so I did. I actually took her advice, and I stopped getting in my own way and stopped fearing the outcome. And then all of a sudden, my body started its healing process on its own terms. And yes, I had 8 surgeries total, and each surgery was 4 to 5.5 hours. And then And I became toxic to the drugs, and slowly I was weaned off the drugs, and it was that I had been resisting working with people with IBD and IBS for the longest time, because it was like an imposter syndrome. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a healthcare professional. So what do I know? But what I didn't realize, and it was like this tap on my shoulder saying, Lorraine, out of anybody that is experiencing IBD or IB flare-ups, IBD or IBS, or even gut disease flare-ups, you would understand the process of what people have to go through to get to the end result. The end result would be to get out of their own way and start the healing process, because people have an incredible amount of power to heal themselves. I'm not saying that you can heal gut disease. What I am saying is you can change how your body behaves to the triggers and the symptoms of the disease.
Wow. Wow, that's a heck of a story, and I'm sorry that you had to go through all of that, but I guess the world around you now will benefit from you, first of all, having a frame of reference for what they're going through. You will be more sympathetic, empathetic towards their situation, and that does make you a healer of sorts, I believe, because people like to be with somebody who at least has some idea of what it feels like for them in their current situation.
I have all the respect of the medical system, 100% respect of the medical system, because actually they helped me survive. But they're only, they lack in the area of building up the emotional support for helping people move through this mentally, right, and emotionally. And I didn't have that kind of support when I was in the hospital or sick. I was just 100% reliant on the drugs, which became very toxic in my system and consequently started shutting down, along with the disease, started shutting down my body. And so it was a struggle for me to keep going. And I thought that, and even the surgeon who I have had at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, when he and I were talking about this last year, he was saying that the medical system can only do so much. What needs to be included in the full picture of a patient getting better, and I don't work with patients. Full disclosure, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor or a healthcare professional. So my clients are people who have gone through the medical system, the medical healthcare professionals, and they have included in their journey the hypnosis side of things, which has changed how their mind and their gut talk to each other. And that's basically what hypnosis for IBD and IBS do. It changes the communication between the mind and the gut. And as I was saying a few minutes ago, as my surgeon recognizes that that is an asset in the healing process.
Right. It's like another tool in your toolbox of getting back to good health.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to take our first break here on Freshwaves, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. We're speaking with Lorraine Thornhill. She's a hypnotist, and she's now written a book, which we'll hear about when we get back, and she's specializing in IBS and IBD hypnosis. We'll be right back, so stay tuned. We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and today we're speaking with Lorraine Thornhill, who is a hypnotist specializing in IBS and IBD hypnosis. If you missed some of this show and you'd like to hear the entire show, you can go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio. While you're there, hit subscribe. We love to have subscribers. And on Freshwaves Radio on YouTube, you can access the other podcasts that we've done in the past with Lorraine Thornhill. We have one on stopping smoking and breaking other habits, and we have a terrific show about how to handle stress during the holiday season. So both of those shows are really worth listening to. So go to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, hit subscribe, and you have access to all of the Fresh Waves podcasts and broadcasts. So we're going to continue now with Lorraine. Lorraine, you have written a book since the last time I spoke with you.
I have. It's been a long time coming, and it was just published last March, not quite a year ago. I'm actually quite proud of it. It does tell about my personal story, but it also has a lot of my clients' stories in it too, of course, with their permission. And the process that they went through to relieve their own symptoms of IBD and IBS, because some of them suffered with Crohn's, some of them were colitis, and some of them were irritable bowel syndrome. And so all of these are people who wrote about their journey through the implementation of hypnosis, which, by the way, I teach people how to do it themselves, how to hypnotize themselves to get the results, so that it's a lifelong, I'm going to say pleasure, but it's a nice soothing implementation to their healthcare, to their personal healthcare. Yeah.
So what is your book called, and how do people get it if they'd like to read it?
It is called Hypnotic Healing for IBD and IBS Symptom Relief. No added medications, no dietary restrictions, and it is proven with scientific results. And every story that you hear within the book is all directly associated to gut disease in some way, and their journey and their results. But the best part about this is each chapter has an exercise within it that also has an audio component to it that you can download, put it in your iTunes or whatever, on your computer, on your phone, and just listen to it whenever you want. And these particular exercises, the audio exercises within the book, are also some of the audio exercises that I actually use on my clients. And the stories that are associated with this particular exercise are the results of the outcome of each client. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I thought it wasn't going to be too long of a book, but it ended up being, about 240 pages. So that's substantial.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It does cover a little bit of my own story, but mostly other people's.
Interesting. Well, I guess people like to have community, right? And even if your community is one of illness, it's still very supportive to have people around you, or to hear that other people have had the same thing that you've had. And, it gives you, I don't know, it just kind of validates how you're feeling. So sounds like it would be a worthwhile read for anyone going down that path.
Yeah, I've got a lot of feedback. It's on Amazon right now, and there are some really nice testimonials on Amazon too. And I'm also thinking about putting it into Indigo chapters, which is going to be released in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully more people will read it. Okay.
So how do people get hypnosis for these specific problems? Do they come to you, or conditions, I should say? Do they come to you one-on-one? Do you do group sessions? How do you handle it?
In the past, I have done mostly one-on-one sessions. In fact, I've done a lot of one-on-one sessions. And I've done them over virtual over Zoom or Google Meets, and I've also done them in my office. And the results are the same regardless if it's virtually or if it's in person. Virtually, people love it because they're in their own environment and they're very comfortable where they are. So there's no preconceived ideas of being out of their space or anything like that. They find their most comfortable spot, and that's where they choose to do the work. And lately, what I am doing, I'm in the process of launching a group program, which actually the program registration starts October 31st and closes November 4th, and then November 5th, is when the program starts. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to take 25 people into the registration, because I'm also going to do one-on-one with these people who register. So it's not just going to be a group format, it's going to be a group and a one-on-one format for each person that joins the group. And that's why I can only take 25 people. And then I know the success rate of all my clients that have gone through this program. And so I'm really, and in the group format, I find that the energy is really high, because I have done group formats for other things in the past, but this is the first time I've done group format for IBD and IBS. And so you have this empathetic group of people who knows how other people are feeling, and that amplifies the results because it's all in a caring environment, and the energy is really high in that environment because people are serious about creating a better health for themselves. So in January, because I'm only accepting 25 spots initially, in January, I will be relaunching another program for another 25 people, because this program will be carrying on for 6 to 7 weeks. And the reason I say 6 to 7 is because there's always Q&As that people want, the questions that want to get answered, and anything that they're working on. Sometimes they need clarification and a little bit of extra support. So the last session is the bonus session to accommodate those needs.
So do you find that working online is as effective as working in person?
Absolutely. No question about it. I've had amazing results. Most of my clients now are online, actually. There's only a very, very small percentage that come in to see me, and I've had people come from Toronto to see me. I live in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but even people in Niagara-on-the-Lake like the virtual aspect of it, because we can manipulate the time a little bit better online as opposed to in person. So if if it's 15 minutes later, then it's 15 minutes later, or I can extend it a little bit more. Generally, my sessions last 90 minutes per session, and the group hypnosis session will be no different. And because the first half hour is generally understanding the concerns of the client, and then the next hour is working through those concerns. And that applies to everybody in the group. So if there's like 10 to 25 people in the group, everybody has a chance to speak, and then we'll work through those on an unconscious level. And the way I do that is to speak in a way that the unconscious mind will find the solution for themselves, and each person gets the value out of the process. So hypnosis is a wonderful tool that will enable the unconscious mind to do the work for you.
Wow. So everybody's listening to you. I'm just trying to paint a picture of what it would look like for the listeners. So they're all listening to you at the same time, and you're saying the same thing, but everybody will process it in their own way.
Correct. Yeah. If I said to you, imagine the color blue. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I have a color in mind, but I didn't say if it was peacock blue, indigo blue, or blue turquoise, or whatever the case may be. I did not give you a variation of blue. Mm-hmm. Instantly, you're going to think of your favorite color blue or your favorite blue color. It could be completely different from mine.
Right.
So it's all subjective, right? So what you perceive that information to be is the right information for you.
Huh. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was robin's egg blue, by the way.
Oh, nice. Mine was indigo. See? Two totally different spectrums.
Okay. Yeah. So then the person is, in essence, hypnotized, and you would hope that in their home space they have a safe space to be where they're comfortable and they're not going to fall off their chair or something like that.
Right.
And what happens if they go to a place through hypnosis that's unpleasant for them? And everybody else in the group would hear them or know their story? I'm just trying to figure out how it would all
generally,
work.
Generally, when you're in hypnosis and you have an abreaction, there's an easy way to accommodate abreactions. We just pull them back to prior to that abreaction started. And because I calibrate people, I visually calibrate people. There are hypnotists that do hypnosis over the phone. I don't, because I like to see that person.
Right.
And with all the clients I've had that I've done over virtual, I have had only one incident where I changed the color of whatever it is that they were abreacting to, and then they stopped the abreaction because it no longer is that specific item that they, or circumstance or event or imprint that they were abreacting to. And so this is why it's important for me to calibrate, because I need to understand where they are in the process. You know, the eye fluctuations or the face changes color or, you know, the lip drooping a little bit. These are all signs of how far people are in trance. And even if you don't show any of those signs and you're going along with the process, you are still in that alpha state. And that alpha state is where all healing starts. I'm talking about self-healing. So whatever the person feels needs healing, I may not even know what it is, but they do. And so when you give instructions to the unconscious mind to take it to a place where it will benefit that person in that state at that time and rearrange the information so it doesn't react in the body, again, this is mind-gut communication, then the outcome for that person is full of strength and calm and in I'm going to say a sense like just there's a softness to the person, and sooner or later, whenever we speak in a group, people are going to go into trance. I haven't had anybody, unless they object to it up front, like you mentioned earlier on, that hasn't gone into trance. And I've had some amazing people have incredible experiences virtually just by listening to my voice when they want to do something that benefits them. Anybody who joined in the program is not joining the program because they don't want to get better. They join the program because they want to feel better, so that they will follow the process of going through the exercises and working with me and all the other energies in the room to find the best outcome for them. And for some people, the best outcome may be being able to eat a different food without a reaction, or not panicking if they can't get to the bathroom because they don't have the trigger that forces them into going to the bathroom, or not having anxiety moments when they see a line up at the bathroom. Right? Or going into work. Here's a big one for a lot of my clients. Going into work and wondering if they're going to be triggered at work, and they spend the next, 3 or 4 hours in this abreaction of the gut disease because the body is just going crazy from a trigger. I mean, I was one of those times. This is really it's a little gross, but I'm going to say it. I was in the middle of the mall and I had an abreaction, and I couldn't control my bowels, and so I had to find a bathroom and just stay there for hours until I could figure things out. And so that is a really scary place to be.
Yeah, sure
right?
is.
So, and you're so worried about what other people think that it's going to affect you in some physical manner and emotional manner. And that's when the gut, the mind is telling the gut, oh, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. So the gut reacts more and more and more. But when you can rearrange what the mind thinks and feels, then you can also rearrange how the gut behaves towards that thinking.
Well, is it fair to say that stress plays a part in the severity of the IBS or the IBD?
Oh, it's a huge factor. Absolutely. It's a huge factor.
Okay.
People don't realize how much stress impacts the gut. Often the gut is called the second brain for a reason, right? So the way it works is you think of something, that thought creates an emotion. The emotion creates an outward behavior. And that behavior generally manifests in the stomach first and then sends signals throughout. So the vagus nerve is what carries that communication factor from the brain to the gut. Now, if the gut feels things, and the opposite could be also talked about. Have you ever had that moment in your gut when you know something didn't feel right? And I'm not talking about your body. I'm talking about your your surroundings, or
right.
The place that you're in, or the circumstance that you're in, or some people that you talk to. There's something not right there.
Yep.
I encourage people to listen to that, because that is your gut-mind connection talking big time. It is sending signals out. And so I've learned over the years to really listen to my body. And, and I'm sure you've heard my angel stories and how they impact my life on many occasions. And in order for me to hear those angels, I have to listen to my body. And so my communication is, my gut communicates with my brain on many, many occasions. And when my gut communicates now, I start listening, and then I calm my body down and just just empty my mind and let it come to me what the communication value is. And it has not steered me wrong, that's for sure. And so that's what I want to teach people how to do within the program, so that they can avoid triggers. And that's not the only thing I teach, by the way. I teach boundaries, and because when you set boundaries for yourself, you can also avoid triggers by learning to say no. And so there's a lot of exercises that one can do to create strength in those moments when you're succumb to bullies or other people's interpretation of what you should be doing, as opposed to what you feel you need to do.
Right,
right?
right. Or that knee-jerk reaction that you've had for years and years and years when someone says something or a situation goes a certain way, and that bully that's in front of you, the voice even can make your heart rate start to race and you sweat and your face turns red, and there's all those things that are happening within you, and when you can control those, you've got to be better off for it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And those ab reactions that you just described, the sweating, the heart palpitations, the fast beat, the sweaty palms, that kind of thing, the anxiety, the stress, all of those are reactions to an initial belief system. So you have this imprint, and we have this imprint, and I include myself in this. We have this imprint in our brain that creates a thought that creates an emotion. The emotion manifests in a behavior, and the behavior comes out, could be negative, could be positive.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Santa Claus brings me a very positive reaction,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the kind of thing that understanding what your body is doing, what your body is saying to you, is a key component of understanding how to change it, how to change the behavior of it.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'd like people to know, again, what is the name of your book and how they can get it?
My book is Hypnotic Healing for IBD and IBS Symptom Relief, and they can get it on Amazon. It comes in an ebook format or printed format.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca.
Perfect. And now, what about the course that's starting in a week or less?
Yeah. Well, the course program registration starts October 31st.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, I can send you a link to a page so that you can read up more about it. And on that link, there is a registration to start the course. Now, the course, when I work with one-on-one, I am charging $1,500 for one-on-one work for a 6-week program. And this course, I've marked off $1,000, so it's $497 for the 6 to 7 week course. I'm going to say 7 weeks. The 7-week course, and in that, everybody does get a one-on-one workshop with me. And this workshop includes hypnosis, personal hypnosis too. So the reason I am only charging $497 is because I really want to get people involved in their own healing process through unconscious work. And to me, it's so important just to get people feeling better. They don't have to suffer in silence. And these are diseases of silence, They are isolating and they're debilitated. And believe me, I know I've been hooked up to PICC lines and IVs and creative IVs and all sorts of things. So I know how debilitating it is.
And again, if they can work together in a group and realize that they're not alone and find some solace even in that, it can only be a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a private group.
Right.
Not everybody can join. There's only a small amount of people in this program, and it's just nobody can join halfway through. So once you start, you're in it for 6 to 7 weeks, and
right.
The resources are put in a file so that you can download any time, and also that applies to the meetings too. So.
And as you said before, the takeaway also is not only all these resources, but the fact that you will go away with skills that will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't just apply to IBD and IBS symptoms. It applies to a lot of other things in your life. And that was a big takeaway for a lot of my clients.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are out of time, and good luck with all of this. What an exciting adventure for you.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure being on your show.
Well, we love having you, and I think this new endeavor of yours just sounds like it's so fitting for you personally, and I am excited to know that there are so many thousands of people that you'll be able to help with this program. Is there a website where people can go to?
Yes, actually. It's LorraineThornhill.com, basically. So
Okay.
if you know my name, you know the website. And on the website, there are pages about IBD and IBS and some of the other stuff I do. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining us today. As I've said before, it's always a pleasure having you on Freshwaves. That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear this show again, you can go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio. Hit subscribe while you're there. We love to have subscribers. And if you ever have any questions, you can get a hold of me at bren@freshwaves.ca. We'll talk to you again next week on Freshwaves. Take care, everyone.